For the Rules and Open Government Committee and Committee of the Whole. And we will start out with a roll call. Tony?
Arenas, Cohen,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Peralez,
Here.
Jones.
Present.
Thank you. And Sylvia's coming over right now.
Great, thank you.
All right. So we're going to start out with the agenda for October 5th. And we're going to start out on pages 4 and 5. 6 and 7. 8 and 9. 10 and 11. 12 and 13. 14. And there is an ad sheet for the maker of the motion, but we're going to go to the public first. And the first public speaker is Tessa.
Thank you so much. The final agenda. Okay, great. Well, thank you for the informational page there. That's really helpful for your good democracy outreach. So thank you. And well, you know, I mean, the concern that I have in terms of the whole business of our city, to look at the whole city and the whole agenda as I've been coming to all the meetings. So I feel like it's the curtain that I'm getting to see behind how our city works. And one of the things that I was seeing is how important our Office of Economic Development is. And, you know, in regards to get back onto the issue of this particular meeting of whatever the next meeting, October 6th.
Thank you, Tessa.
Is that what? I'm getting.
I want to thank you for
Okay, good.
Focusing
Staying
on it.
connected. Okay, thank you, sweetheart. And then, so what is connected to that is on the calendar or on our agenda is talking about our climate, our climate smart, our climate crisis. And the problem is that we're not talking about our climate crisis enough. And we're not giving enough. When I look at behind the scenes of all the economic development, it's all about economic development. And yet we really need somebody who's about degrowth. We need somebody on our city council, not Nancy Klein, not economic development. It has to be somebody maybe paid, maybe unpaid, that deals with degrowth, because that's where we need to go. We need to go back to nature because, and back to our agricultural roots, really, or we won't be here on the planet. And the very sad news today is we have lost 22 species, 22, including this beautiful woodpecker.
Tessa,
And so back to climate change. That's what we're talking about. Climate smart needs to be a lot smarter because things are going down so fast, and that we will either have an uncontrolled demolition or a controlled demolition. And we'd much rather have a controlled demolition. So we need to put all our resources into our climate smart, and so that we have.
thank you. Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Happy Wednesday. Happy end of September. I'm to comment, to try to add to Tessa's words about climate issues. You have an item on the October 5th agenda about green, about SJCE community energy and how it can be moving forward in this next fall and coming year. Good luck in the efforts how to do that. I'm really hopeful, as I've been saying, you're doing some really good work at the state level. Good luck how we mind the store and how we work with our local community level. I guess you're trying to address issues at this time. Thank you. To make, purchasing plans accessible and understandable to the public can be the simplest way to do that. And to make them renewable ideas and to really make a good pitch about, this is a time to set up our good renewable future. There's been a big fight that we need to set up our fossil fuel future and economy at this time as ways to perhaps work as a hedge against any upcoming natural disasters, and that we need fossil fuels in the time of natural disaster for its generator use and stuff. But it's my feeling if we make that a small limited sense and we use it just for its limited time of a natural disaster, if we have good prepared practices for renewable energies now, we can transition back to these good practices after the time of emergency. And that's planning positively for just to continue our good practices of our good future. And that good future is not nuclear. It is solar power. We can do a lot with solar power. Let's just talk about this openly, prepare now, and thank you.
Thank you. That's it for public comments, bringing it back over to the committee.
Move approval of the agenda and the ad sheet.
Second.
All right. And you guys were on it too. Usually after a long council meeting, it's a little, hard sometimes, but very, very responsive. So thank you. Tony?
Arenas,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Peralez,
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next up is the release date for study session. And we're going to go to the public first. Tessa, go ahead.
I think that study session was on our climate work that we're doing with our smart, San Jose smart climate. So, right, I really appreciate what Blair was saying is definitely preparedness in regards to, we need to be on that kind of, when you're in a crisis, that's all you talk about. And so, and you only think about and prepare for it. And we need to do that. And not just words, blah, 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 but really actions. And so what we need is to be, in that mode of preparing. And it is, I appreciate what Blair said, not nuclear. Our future needs to be just solar or wind, really just renewable. Not even our water power is working under our drought conditions. So it's really getting into a much more hyper local reality. And that's where, all of our buildings really should be off grid solar, and that we have battery backup. And then we also need, and this is something I talked about in the group, in the Smart Climate group meeting, was that we need a battery backup so that we don't have to be dealing with PG&E at all, because PG&E is, even now, when the power goes down, our green power goes down, but not if you're off grid. We need to be off grid. We need to get away from the grid, because the grid is part of the problem in terms of our transmission lines. And that's where so many of our fires are started, because that's where the transmission lines are up in the hydroelectric, in the piney woods of the Sierras. And so we need to be hyper local with our energy generation and have a ability for backup to be a battery, a community battery is what my husband says we need, is a community battery, that we can use that as our backup instead of PG&E. And just not being engaged with PG at all. And so preparing for this, and then preparing to grow food in our.
Thank you, Tessa. And I'm assuming that you were actually speaking to the next item. And so when the next item comes up, you have already spoken to it. Go ahead, Blair, you're next.
Hi, thank you. Some nice words by Tessa. I think I want to be able to speak on the next item, and so I will wait until that time.
All right. And well, that's the end of the public comments. Bringing it back to the committee.
I'll move to release the October 8th study session date.
Great, thank you.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Tony?
Arenas,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Perales,
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is the Climate Smart San Jose special meeting. We're going to go to the public. Go ahead, Blair.
Hi, thank you for this item. Hopefully, if you can, hopefully you can allow Tessa to speak, because she's been working hard on these issues and she may have gotten confused on the last item. To try to speak a little bit for her, these items, we also talk about these items at the end of the meeting on HA. She can speak at that time too as well, possibly. I had real concerns with this item, that with item HA, that you're pulling the work plan away. You're not going to show that to the public anymore. It's great you're going to have this meeting, this climate smart meeting or climate change. I don't quite know its term, but a good climate meeting in early November, climate planning. But you're taking away its smart work plan or its work plan. And I don't know why that is. It's important to share the information publicly and we can hear it and understand it, but we need to see it in writing and we need to see what the steps will be for the future planning. I don't quite understand why that's happening. Hopefully that can be explained. Hopefully, Carrie Romanoff's ideas of the tree issue is being resolved and addressed. And I think, she offered some good academic logic that it just felt a little uncomfortable and something wasn't quite right about it. I know we're dealing possibly with issues. I talk about earthquake, but by 2023, we may not be quite fully ready to be doing good practices yet. It may be until 2025, after any major earthquake events, that we start talking about, real planning futures for ourselves. How we work that period out of this time, we're starting to figure that out with the housing issues. Good luck how we can talk about this openly. And if an earthquake is actually coming, let's talk about it openly and prepare openly so we won't be confused. Thank you, and hopefully talk to you later about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just real quick, I sent the mayor a whole bunch of videos about, and it does have to go with the work plan for the smart city, about the 3D printing homes the more I look into this technology, I think it really has a lot of potential for eliminating huge amounts of costs. They were building homes between $4,000 and $10,000 that were between 9 and 1,400 square foot, fully electric, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, all outfitted. They were using rice and mud and different parts to mix the cement. And I don't have the whole thing down pat. I'm going to try to contact some of the. I don't want to take too much time. I appreciate the fact that this is being brought up, but I think we have to not only think outside the box, we have to get rid of the box and try to think globally and environmentally. But also, there's a lot of technology that's available out there. It will unfortunately eventually displace some workers. Training those workers on how to handle the robotics and work on the robotics is also another avenue so that they can stay ahead of the curve when the ways of construction change. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Brian. Luis?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Louise Bedsworth. I'm the Land Use Program Director at the Center for Law, Energy, and Environment at UC Berkeley School of Law. Prior to joining the Center for Law, Energy, and the Environment, I served as Executive Director of the California Strategic Growth Council. And I'm just that in both of these roles, I've paid very close attention to the work that's happening in San Jose, which is really setting a model for an integrated land use strategy to advance climate action. So I really just wanted to congratulate the city on the incredible work that you're doing and the bold action that's being proposed for this November 8th study session. Achieving carbon neutrality is going to be absolutely essential for avoiding the worst impacts of climate change. At the November 8th study session, I encourage the city to continue to fully integrate land use, including the role of natural and working lands as part of the city's climate strategy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. Congratulations on the incredible work that's happening. And that you're really just setting a model for an integrated approach to climate action. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of public comments, bringing it back to the committee.
Move approval.
Second.
Great, it's been moved and seconded. Tony?
Arenas,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Peralez,
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the public record. First speaker is Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. The study is called Climate Smart Study. So I got confused because that implies the idea of technology involved. So just to mention. For my public comment, public record, I spoke about the hopes of how we can continue to talk about the reimagined process in the future of the city charter process. City Manager McGuire Jennifer McGuire has laid out a letter where she felt that the direction of the charter process was not going quite in the right way. And I think we just need to do some readjustments and retooling about what the Charter Commission can be talking about. But I think we can continue the practices and language and ideas about reimagine and how it relates to equity and how it relates to open democracy and how it relates to ideas of green sustainability and even futures of Ohlone land trust issues in the future and Ohlone values. It's really interesting work that's starting to develop. And we're talking about community issues. We're no longer talking about, the mayor and a small group of rich developers. So we've made a really interesting change. I hope we can continue those good efforts and just be very open to what the subject of community and the future of the charter can be about. I think it's a good direction we're understanding, and I hope we can continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tessa, I'm assuming you're going to speak to your letter?
Oh, was my letter in there? I didn't know.
Yes,
I
it
thought
is.
the letter, oh, it was? Okay. Oh, okay. Well, that was good because, thank you for reminding me. That's so sweet of you because what I was going to comment was on the other letters that was the Villa Montana and the issues of that. But, related to that letter is that they're asking for more community input. that they want to be engaged more. And even Deb Davis was talking yesterday about wanting to have more public engagement and putting out something to even vote on, even that level of engagement. And that's where I'm having trouble with the decisions that have been made in my neighborhood, and that we don't want a hotel. And so, and the reason, connecting it to my own letter, which I'm saying that we need to stay focused on our climate crisis, is that, with that focus, which is degrowth, and that is the focus. So then when you have a hotel proposed, then that's covering up land that can be used for food production. And when you have a property that actually has nothing built on it, it's just mostly a parking lot at 615 Stockton, that the goal is that all those lands would be quickly converted into food production, and because it's easy to do. And that's, even Mayor Liccardo, when you're talking about building on the river, he says, oh, well, that was a parking lot, so no big deal that we put a 16-story apartment on it, or whatever it is, actually office building. But the really problem was that we even put a parking lot on it to begin with. So that's not an excuse. Two wrongs don't make a right. And we have to start degrowth, and that is that we need to be growing food everywhere. And the only other thing that the other problem we have is, of course, our housing. So, okay, I say that we could put housing on 615 that would be for homeless, but also for teachers, and that we would be growing food, and that the learning is to become.
Thank you. Bringing it back to the committee.
Motion to note and file.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Tony?
Arenas. Arenas.
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Peralez,
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to the consent calendar. I'm going to go to the public first. Tessa, this is speaking to the consent calendar.
Can you have Blair go first?
Sure. Go ahead, Blair.
Hi, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to comment on the domestic violence. I guess it's going to be some sort of get together of some sort, lighting event, ceremony, and awareness event at the Tower and Rotunda. To offer, ideas of awareness. I'm really interested in Councilperson Peralez's ideas of gun safety at this time and how it can relate to the domestic violence issues. I think there's a really amazing component to it just to talk about everyday workplace issues and how to talk about the mental health within workplace issues. That very much, is considering the events of VTA. And I think can be a very agreeable subject matter for all sides to be considering how we talk about the future of events that happen at the VTA. So for Councilperson Peralez and this new work effort to be, talking with Councilperson Arenas and all the good work she's been doing all these years on domestic violence issues, that can be a really good connection. And, it seems like it has the makings. It can be that. Good luck the work you can do together, and to the always continued good work of Councilperson Arenas with these issues. And I guess that's about all. I think I got 20 seconds here I wanted to add. Oh yeah, I hope from my end, I hope we can continue to work on from the good practices of peer review program ideas with the police with domestic violence issues. I hope we can learn how that can grow to other parts of the.
Thank you. Okay, Tessa, go ahead.
Okay. Hold on. Yeah, I'm a little confused. Like the consent calendar, as you look at it on the rules, I guess that's related to the agenda, the original agenda of the council meeting. Is that true? it looks at the consent of the count of the, anyway, it looks like that's what it is. So I was gonna look at the consent calendar, and it was talking about, well, efficiency. It was talking about climate efficiency, that we're gonna look into that. And then Blair was mentioning about domestic violence. So the issue that I was gonna bring up about that is, in my plan of what I envision about how we need to live, we need to not live alone. And, when we think about homeless,
Tessa,
what?
sorry for interrupting, but
Go ahead.
it's the approval of a domestic violence awareness event.
Okay, good. Yeah, domestic violence. So I am talking about that then. Okay, good. So I wasn't talking about domestic violence, because what I'm saying is that I think that we don't, I guess you're saying that you need two people to have domestic violence, but I'm saying is that, when we're creating these isolated homeless homes, even these small transitional homes, I think we are social beings. And so when we're, when I'm thinking about housing that we could develop that would deal with homelessness, and then, hopefully preventing domestic violence, is that we live with teachers that are helping us. And it has to be a 24/7. That's what I'm thinking, is that, when we live isolated, even in our, nuclear family issues, we need to have more social beings around us. And so that's what I'm saying, is that we build housing with homeless and house people, but the house people would be teachers, and that we be, learning to live without fossil fuels. So when we build infrastructure for homeless, or in the future at all, no car infrastructure. And it's also a garden, because nature heals. And that's the healing from domestic violence, is nature heals.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I agree with Tessa and Blair also. The domestic violence is a terrible situation, and we are social creatures, and we do need these these events that not only raise awareness, but let us know that we're not alone. And the more we can get out the information of helplines, online counseling, interventions, neighbors, watching out for neighbors, not spying on everybody about every little thing, but
all be
watching out for neighbors,
connected onto the
and also helping out.
I don't have any of that.
I think I'll join on in with him too. Let's see.
Hold on for a second, Brian. Can everybody put their
Okay.
mics on mute? Thank you. Go ahead.
I don't need any extra time, Vice Mayor. I'm fine. So I really think that it would be very helpful to combine that. And I think what Tessa's trying to say, and I'm thinking I'm getting what Blair and Tessa are trying to say, is if we incorporate groups of people that can help each other, instead of one section live over here and one section live over here, that offers a stronger foundation. And I think that's what this event is trying to do. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Brian. All right, bringing it back to the committee. Can I get a motion, please?
Move approval.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I guess that long meeting yesterday is starting to catch up with us.
Second.
I apologize. I
I
second.
heard it.
Trouble getting to the unmute here.
No worries. All right, Tony?
Arenas,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Compassionate San Jose Bold Housing Solutions. And before I go to the public, I'm going to go to the staff. Lee, do you want to speak to this in the early consideration form and what our decision, frame our decision for us?
Sure, happy to do that. Vice Mayor Lee Wilcox, Assistant City Manager. Staff did do an early consideration form on this memorandum. As you can see from your packet, all items are green light pending budgetary action that the council will take on November 2nd related to the ARP rebalancing, as well as all of our rebalancing from the influx of funds coming in. And we were doing that as part of the roadmap exercise that we committed to in June to fully fund emergency housing construction operations, as well as sheltering enhanced encampment services as part of that exercise. So these items can be greenlit and we can be heard as part of the November 2nd council meeting.
Great. Thank you, Lee. Okay, now we're going to go to the public first, and Tessa, go ahead.
Good. Compassionate housing. Good. Well, yeah, so that is what I was thinking about. And so when I hear all this money is coming in for our, housing from our federal dollars and state dollars, I guess it's really state right now with Gavin Newsom. Thank you, Gavin Newsom. And, saying that basically, so what I want to do is buy that property at 615 and integrate and on 615 Stockton Avenue, so it doesn't become a hotel. So that's the motivating force, because like I say, climate action is local action. And if all of us would have actually at one point in our lives, in our ancestors' lives, stop the things that are in our community right now, we wouldn't have as horrific of a neighborhood as I have, where I live across from a diesel bus depot and a cement factory. So I'm saying I don't want a hotel. So what I'm envisioning is I want housing, because that is the vision of what we need. And we need companion gardens to grow food and to become a strong neighborhood. So you have a commons, so you do know your neighbors. And the thing is that the way I picture it is that it would be 3 stories with 1 story underground, no cement basements. My husband has figured out how to use pressure treated wood to create a full basement. So we have to get away from cement. It's a big big greenhouse gas emitter. And so we have to, so if we build these 4 stories in a small footprint, and we have homeless people with teachers living together 24/7, and it could be almost 75 people could be in 3 buildings, and there'd be no car infrastructure. So there wouldn't be problems in the community, because that's what everybody complains. Cars, problem. We got to get away from cars. And then of course it's built in a green way, the whole building's off-grid solar. And then they are becoming patrons of husbandry, that this is becoming job training, to work training, so that we need to grow food on all.
Blair, go ahead.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. This is a kind of an interesting item. I'm a bit hurt and confused about the last item about a drug treatment facility. As we're starting and gearing up towards, it sounds like a new way to talk about housing and homeless issues. For as much as drugs can be connected to housing issues, I think it would maybe just a little more, I don't know, decent and progressive. I don't know what other caring to learn how to use the language that we can talk about drug facility treatment centers and such, but make that a separate item compared to other housing needs. People don't like to be lumped into these sort of categories. I sure don't, and I don't know. Just to mention that at this time. Otherwise, a good luck to these programs. If we do a really good established good practices already, and if we really responsibly budget things and realize that we got a ton of new subsidy coming in, that and funding that we got to be really responsible about. If we do our good stuff first, or the stuff we know best and do well, then we can start to consider the experimental stuff a bit more. And it just seems that we have to learn how to do that compassionately. And we don't have to bunch everything together. We can separate and still do these things. So good luck how to do that. I think that maybe should be a goal. It's certainly a goal I can talk over with the more progressive council persons and see what they say and feel. Good luck how we work on this. And I hope this can be a whole community effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, I think, of course, obviously agree with the compassionate. And just as the other 2 wonderful speakers said, making sure that we focus on the compassionate side of it. And maybe like Blair was saying, the terminology would be better, more effective if it wasn't, if it didn't label people, because we all struggle with our situations, and a lot of it, some of us struggle privately, but it's the same thing. I think you know what I'm trying to say. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Brian. Bob?
Yes, I'm the manager of the Guadalupe Community Garden and also the mayor's task force for the river. And I would love to see this go in effect. I live it, breathe it, smell it, and deal with it on every single level. And without enough homes and facilities, there's no way we can solve the problem over by the river and or the Columbus Park area. In addition, the 12 years I've managed that, I've had to deal with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of, not mine, drug, alcohol, and everything else. So with right now, we only have somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 mental health beds that people can go stay at to get at least the process started. So it's very important that we have additional forces out there for the mental health. Also, I'll throw in drug and alcohol, even though it's not on the agenda right this moment. And certainly we need more housing. So to get 1,000 versus what we're looking at now would be magnificent. Despite the disagreements with the various people on how many want homes, I find about 75% don't because they don't want to follow rules or whatever. Others have different numbers. We can all differ. But irregardless, if we get a head start and at least get people in, give them some pride, and then also perhaps make them a park advocate and clean, have a job and clean it and stuff, I think we can move forward. And moving forward at this point in time would be wonderful. The last 2 days while they're moving everybody, it's been an absolute nightmare. Thank you. I'll recede to 30 seconds.
Thank you. Gail?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all the council members that signed on to this memorandum. Thank you so much for taking this on. I do have to say, it's not a disaster, the cleaning at what Bob just said. I can't believe he said that. It's been a wonderful cleanup and it's gone very smoothly. I've been out there every single day. So I don't know what he meant by that. And a lot more people want to be inside. He said less than 75%. I would say a lot higher than that, want to be inside. But I'm really excited. My council district D9 needs some housing for the unhoused, but I'm concerned about the length and how long it's going to take. We do have these folks that are getting abated and at Columbus, and there's no place for them to go. That's the bottom line. I've been talking about this for months now, and at phase 3 next year, we need to have something for all these folks. So they're going to end up on the creek, the Guadalupe, and nobody's going to be happy because nobody's doing anything right now. We need to get some more housing, more motels now. When I say now, I mean, before the end of the year. So please, this is wonderful. I thank you. But we have to think of the big picture. And the big picture is what's going to happen when everybody is in phase 3 and where are they going to go? They're going to go down to the Guadalupe or into your neighborhood, like I've been saying. So this is very important that we get this done before June of 2022. Thank you. And thanks for the memo. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Gail. All right, that's the end of public comments. We're going to go back to the committee, and I see the mayor is here, so I'm going to take a wild guess that the mayor wants to speak to the memo. So go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. Good to see you all. I'm happy that you guys are all carrying the laboring oar there on the Rules Committee. Thank you for the many hours you've invested, and I hope you don't hate me for jumping off. In any event, I want to say thanks for considering this memo. I know many of you have been working on these many issues. I think all of you have been for many months now. What we're proposing here is trying to accelerate the work to take advantage of a confluence of opportunities. And let me just start by answering the question, opportunity to do what? And the what is, how can we rapidly expand the inventory of rapid build apartments? This is a term I just invented. I know staff uses emergency interim housing communities. There's lots of other things we can call these things, but essentially these are private units where private bedrooms and bathrooms and communal kitchens and other facilities. But that privacy is really important because I think, as many of us know, getting somebody off the street in a shelter is actually pretty darn hard. There's a lot of things about a shelter that doesn't appeal to plenty of our unhoused. including concerns about safety, about bringing pets, about having places to put stuff. On the other hand, offering a private apartment is different. And we're seeing real results as a result of what we've already done just in the last year together. So I wanted to point out that the unique confluence of opportunities that we have in this moment to be considering this kind of acceleration. First, we have some proven success of a pilot that we launched at the beginning of this pandemic to get 3 rapid build apartment communities up and running in Councilmember Jimenez's and Councilmember Davis's district. And they are now full. I think Councilmember Davis, just has a couple vacancies they're filling in a matter of days. And we've got more than 300 folks who are housed, and we're hearing very positive feedback. So we think we've got something that works, and equally important, this is something we can build relatively quickly in a matter of months rather than years. And we can build it at a small fraction of what it costs typically to build apartment buildings at perhaps $100,000, $110,000 a unit. Secondly, we have a confluence of opportunity from enthusiasm of donors. I've made asks and received commitments now for more than $15 million from Peter and Susanna Powell, John Susabrato, Destination Home, a whole host of donors, and really want to call out the Powells in particular, who've been generous to give to 2 sites in particular. We think that's because folks are seeing that there is something here, that there's real interest in this rapid build concept as we try to tackle our homelessness crisis. We are now seeing real interest from the county. Just yesterday, the board approved a commitment of $40 million for these rapid build projects. I think they're seeing what's happening here, and then there was a project in Mountain View as well that's gotten a lot of interest. We have a lot of interest now from Caltrans, the director, Tokes of Michigan, who's been very collaborative, and District 4 director as well, in helping us identify sites and expand our potential universe of sites. And we have one-time dollars in this moment that we didn't have before. Dollars we can really use to do something impactful. And of course, we know some of those dollars are still federal dollars. ARPA, we have dollars, of course, they're made available through the state. I was advocating, obviously, with many other mayors for that HAP funding. And so we have a lot of one-time dollars, and we know they're not going to be there for a sustainable solution. So the question is, what can we do that's impactful in the short run? Now, there are 2 very big challenges to all this, and I think staff will be the first to point these out because I know they routinely point them out to me, and these challenges are real. The 2 challenges are sites and sustainability. And the question is, how are we going to tackle this differently, given all the challenges we've had with a list of 100 sites and on and on? I say, with regard to sites, there are 2 different approaches we're proposing here. One is to really expand the universe in our search for sites. And we have some example of that. For example, the Rue Ferrari site in Councilmember Jimenez's district really emerged because of our ongoing collaboration with Caltrans. We are looking now with experienced developers and Caltrans at building in the middle of Freeway Cloverleaf, something we never thought was possible before. We don't know for sure it is possible. We want to make sure we can do it very safely. So we'll be very focused on that. But we're looking at that now. How could we imagine how we could expand the opportunity to build housing if we were looking that creatively at the use of land? Looking at private land sites, parking lots with incentives that are suggested here. Working with the county now that they're interested, they're going to be taking tours of these facilities very soon. Appreciate Supervisor Cindy Chavez and her interest, and obviously Supervisor Simidian and Lee and their commitment of and pushing forward funding. And we hope that maybe this could be contagious for other public agencies, Water District, others. So we know, and VTA has been a partner in the past. So we think there's an opportunity to really expand the potential number of sites that we can look at. So we're not just sort of stuck with the same list of 100 where staff's been beating their head against the wall. And then secondly, we're trying a different approach around how we're going to identify these sites, really starting with the council members and the mayor. That is all of us, right? What we've seen now in Councilmember Davis's district, Councilmember Peralez's district, in a site that's going to be under construction soon, Councilmember Mahan's district, in a site we think will be under construction within just a few weeks potentially, is when we can really have council members leaning in, working with the community, and as Councilmember Jimenez is doing now on the safe parking sites, we may be able to accelerate this work, and it's different than simply telling staff to go out there and sort of dump the problem on them and have them beat the head against the wall and try to explain to the community how this is going to get built. We know if there's a mandate that we all agree on, that we're all going to work together on, I'd like to believe we can get this done. We've seen it done very effectively in Sacramento and LA in the same way that I've proposed in this memorandum, which is we bring all the sites together to the council. If somebody wants to go sooner, they certainly can, but try to bring as many sites as possible to council at one time. Let's figure out a way how we can get it all passed up or down and move forward. Then on this issue of sustainability, which is also a very real concern, I think, for everyone, particularly in the housing team, because they're concerned about the roughly $30,000, $35,000 per person that we're spending right now on operating expenses. And I don't believe, by the way, that we need to be spending that much. I know that there are leaner ways that we can manage these in a way that is dignified and safe and provide some basic services. I think there is an important conversation we really need to force about sustainability of this model. And we can only get there if we have the inventory to really build. I think what we're seeing now in Lot E, for example, with Councilmember Peralez's efforts, we are ensuring that we can build these prefab, modular, quick build apartments in a way that complies with mandates to get Section 8 vouchers that will hopefully provide some sustainability over the long run. There are interesting models from Houston where we can work with individuals who are able to secure jobs. They're working poor, they're unhoused, but they're able to work, and perhaps they can pay very minimal amounts of rent and achieve both dignity and some sustainability in the model. We think there may be partnerships with churches, with nonprofits like Nextdoor that are frankly going to be able to access dollars anyway to help. And we can provide housing and perhaps collaborate and combine resources. So I think there are options here to make this more sustainable, and also models that we're working on now with Goodwill and others to try to engage the residents in the community in actually providing service and work within that community or in another community. For example, in providing security and maintenance and driving shuttles for other community members. We think there are models here that we absolutely should and must explore to make these more sustainable, so we're not simply burning one-time money on very expensive management operations. So we are hoping that by leaning in this way, dramatically expanding the inventory, we'll finally have solutions, so we won't have conversations like we had last night where we're all beating our heads against the wall trying to figure out what we do with 250 or 300 people who are living in the Guadalupe River Park. And we have essentially a somewhat sclerotic process for deciding how we can get people housed based on criteria we know are handed down by HUD that force us to go look everywhere else for unhoused people to get them housed before we house the people who are right there in front of us. I think this is an opportunity for us, and I'm hoping we can take advantage of it. So thank you for allowing me to take up so much time.
Thank you, Mayor. But do you think you can go into a little bit more detail on that?
I'm sorry.
All right. I'm going to bring it back to the committee. Does anybody have anything else they want to add on to that?
I put them all to sleep.
I
Can
think
I
you
just
covered
move
everything.
approval?
All right.
Mercifully.
Can I get a second?
I'll second, and I was going to raise my hand.
Go ahead, council member.
Thanks, appreciate it, and welcome back to Rules, Mayor. I don't imagine you miss out on losing out on your Wednesdays. So, but appreciate you coming back to present on this, and thanks for the comprehensive work from you and your team, and for including my office as well. No surprise, I think the only thing slightly more comprehensive that would love to add to the list, at least for temporary support, would be sanctioned encampments. But I think these are all efforts, absolutely, that we need to ensure that we're bulking up from our toolbox, and we know that these are the more permanent solutions, or obviously interim, but interim for some time, that helps us to bridge that gap. permanently ending homelessness for thousands of individuals in our city. And so appreciate that that work and the comprehensiveness. Again, I think that we have an opportunity, as you have pointed out, a very unique one, given the resources coming in from the federal government, the state, giving the focus as well from our governor. And I think we heard that coming from him just before the pandemic. Unfortunately, he's now been able to reshift that focus back towards addressing affordable housing and homelessness, but now the focus as well from our president. And this opportunity has not been there since I've joined the council, and likely since you've been on the council, to have this much focus, energy, and effort, and then ultimately resources to address this crisis. And I think we absolutely have to be completely prepared and prioritize our efforts on how we can take advantage of this time. And so I appreciate your leadership on it, and happy to support these efforts moving forward. And thank you, staff, for the comprehensive response.
Thank you, Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm also supportive of course, housing our unhoused community. And this reminded me of some of the more difficult times that I've seen families go through when I was working under First Five, and we were launching a specialty drug court for parents who had their children removed and had been addicted to meth. And you know, one of the requirements that they had in order to reunite with their children was, of course, to obtain a home. And in order to obtain a home, you know, you had to get on a list, and then you had to comply with all the conditions, like getting a job, or going through a training program, or going to school, and going to drug counseling, and going to other parenting workshops and classes. And so I saw one too many times parents go through this cycle of if they couldn't keep up with some of these things, they would lose their housing, because their housing was basically conditioned. You know, as long as you're doing well, and if you don't test dirty, and if you do all of these other things, you get to keep your home. You get to keep, you know, the roof over your head, so that one day you can reunite with your children. And so one of the lessons I learned there is that this is not a housing first approach for families, which is what we, and I know our housing department in our county now really holds at the center in the way that they approach the unhoused community. And one of the reason I bring this up is that I'm concerned about one of the items, and it's 1A4. And this is talking about that having at least one location will be provided for unhoused individuals in employment or training programs such as San Jose Bridge and the Conservation Corps. And at least one location shall provide a home for women and children who have been in gender-based violence with appropriate discretion, and resolve all legal and regulatory issues to enable this. While I am absolutely, as you all know, supportive of women who are survivors either of sexual assault or gender-based violence, I think it's also conditioning the group that fits within San Jose Bridge and Conservation Corps. And from what I understand, this is not something that is in line with Home Key and their requirements to follow the local referral process. And the local referral process isn't dependent. They don't condition people, hey, you got to be in a training program or an employment program in order to be housed. And I'm afraid that this is taking that approach. Could we work this? This is one of the, I think this is one of the things that needs to get worked out.
Yeah.
Adjustments to the motion at this point.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, I spoke too soon. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it was a natural end anyways, Mayor. So
Okay.
good timing.
Mr. Chair, could I respond just briefly?
Yes, go ahead.
I think that's an excellent point. There's something of a Declaration of Independence here. If we do have flexible HAP funding, for example, it means we have some control over our own inventory. And that enables us to do things other than simply build housing for a regional system that may move people in from other cities based on criteria we have no control over. If we really want to focus instead on ending violence or ending a cycle of violence or ending homelessness among families, for example, the ability to be able to target is really important. And we've lacked that ability. We should be rightfully proud of the incredible work we've done in partnership with the county and many nonprofits and the Housing Authority and getting 4,900 people housed permanently since the start of the pandemic. But we can't get 250 people housed when the federal government is ordering us to clear out the airport approach area. And that points to the fact that we have literally no control over this inventory of housing in terms of who actually gets housed. And I think we've all had that experience of being in the centers that we work so hard to build and greeting people who are coming to us who've been living in other cities their entire lives. And we say, well, gosh, but wait a minute, there's this encampment where a lot of San Jose residents live just a block away. So I think many of us would like to be able to have this ability to have a local preference. We understand that not every dollar is going to be open to that. Home key may not be, but HAP can be. And so we just need to be creative. And I think we have this opportunity now.
Yeah, there's a distinction there. I'm not talking about local requirements. I'm talking about a requirement of employment or training program. So I don't know if there's anybody else on the call that can speak to this. Because
could I respond to that briefly?
Yeah, no, I understand that there's going to be a myriad of funds. It's not going to be just home key, and I understand that. But one of the principles of Housing First and our approach here in the city and in the county is to respond to the most vulnerable, the ones that are at in the streets. They have been living in the streets for a certain length of time, that either have medical conditions or maybe some mental health issues or are seniors. There's a lot of folks who end up dying in our streets that could benefit from a home. And I'm afraid that we're putting some programs that while I agree with these programs, and there's nothing that I would ever oppose in terms of San Jose Bridge and Conservation Corps. I think they're worthy programs and programs that provide an alternative path for a lot of youth. We're putting one group above the other, and so I just would like for us to make sure that we continue to adhere to a housing first and to the most vulnerable of populations.
Mr. Chair, can I respond briefly?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I certainly agree that we should continue to adhere to a housing first approach. I was ashamed to hear that from a Conservation Corps director that we have several young adults who are working and have been working for months in the Conservation Corps and are homeless, living on the street or living in their cars. Similarly, we have programs like San Jose Bridge where people are rolling up their sleeves to beautify our city, and we literally have no pathway to get them housed. I understand the tension here and the conflict with the goal of prioritizing the most vulnerable. We will continue certainly to do that, I think, over the vast majority of our housing infrastructure. I think the idea of being able to ensure that those who are rolling up their sleeves, serving our community and trying to find a pathway to self-sufficiency could be directly assisted if we can get them housed too. And I just, if we got people working for 6 months at Conservation Corps and they're still unhoused, why would anyone else ever want to work for the Conservation Corps? I mean, we need to treat people better than that.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. I think that if they're in that population where they're former or transitioning foster care youth, that really puts them in a vulnerable position. And not to minimize anybody else's challenges that are not that weren't in the system, but as you know, that we want to make sure that the most vulnerable are in first in line, if you will, in terms of any of these programs. And so while I don't disagree with you at all, Mayor, I think that providing a housing solution for our youth and those participants in those training and employment programs is something that I absolutely support. I'm not opposing that at all. I just want to make sure that that we're following our commitments to the most vulnerable. And at this point, the most vulnerable would be those folks who are out there in the streets, just like the San Jose Bridge and Conservation Corps, but we don't have to make that condition if they are in an employment or training program, because I think that doesn't go well with the principles that we're committed to. I think if they happen to be in the San Jose Bridge and Conservation Corps, and then they're also living on the streets, and or they have young children and they're living in their car, they're in safe parking, I think that qualifies them to come into and maybe benefit from this, but not the other way around. They don't have to be in an employment or training program in order to qualify. And I know it's nuanced, but I think it's a nuanced approach that we could be moving in the direction where we're qualifying folks in the same way that I was talking about my experience in drug court, and a lot of the failure of reunification and loss of parental rights had a lot to do with a lot of these parents having to comply with and being conditioned to do all sorts of things. And I know that this is not what we're doing here. We're not conditioning our unhoused community to any of these things. So I think if we just change the way that, or maybe modify the way that we are going to approach this, and if the San Jose Bridge and Conservation Corps participants, if we overlay this criteria of being unhoused and they happen to qualify, that is great, but not based on employment or training. So I'll leave that piece alone. I think well, I guess maybe Mayor, is that distinction distinguishable to you?
Yeah, I guess, Councilor Reyes, I think I understand your point. I would just ask if you could suspend disbelief for just a few weeks to allow staff to chew on this.
Sure.
So we can have a broader conversation. I understand. I think I understand the concern. And I'm happy. I understand we don't want to condition housing for people for people based on whether they, have to jump over particular hoops that we create. There may be very unique circumstances where I think we might all agree that being able to have the housing for those who are unhoused, who are actually part of a program that's helping them get on their feet, that will enable them to transition through that housing to something more permanent, is actually a way we're going to get more people housed faster.
Absolutely agree. And so I'll give that as feedback. The other piece is, oh gosh, let me see, where does this fall under? What is that? G, where it has employing work-ready EIHC residents to perform tasks otherwise paid for through contract companies, such as security, maintenance, shuttle driving, and management. You know, I'm not trying to read too much into this, but I really don't know that this is another condition. So if you live here, you have to work here. You have to earn your keep, in other words. And so I just caution on an approach that incorporates that into our system. And the other piece is, oh gosh, darn it, it's 1AH, and that is enhanced services programs for the surrounding neighborhoods who host EIHCs and BHCs. And I completely agree. But before that happens, before we move forward, we need to make sure that the other sites are also receiving enhanced services. And so that's a question I have. Are they all? Are the other sites that we have for EIHC and BHCs, do they already receive enhanced services?
Can I speak to this, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Councilmember Jimenez. I would just say from the perspective of the council office, especially in District 2, where we have 2 of these bridge housing locations, I think that what you see there in the memo was incorporated. It was an incorporated piece from the memo I had written back in the day when the original bridge housing in District 2 got put into District 2. I can tell you from the view of the residents and the view of my office, I don't think we've necessarily had enhanced services, and that's why I thought it was important to lift that up and plug that into the memo to be very explicit about that. And that can mean extra police patrols, litter abatement, things of that nature. And so I'm not sure we've necessarily had that, but I think it's a very important component for those that exist already and those that we're going to develop into the future.
Right. Yes, I think that that would be an absolute requirement before we continue to move on to other sites, that we look at the ones that we've already done. So I completely agree with you, council member. And then lastly, on the council policy prioritization early consideration response form, on page 3 under 1E through J, it is green lit, and it says home key and HAP currently require that tenant selection be conducted through the coordinated entry system as a condition of accepting funds, which is what I was talking about. Thus, when these sources are applied to projects, the city must use the coordinated entry system. Then it says IGR, our intergovernmental team, will work with the housing department and CAO to advocate for needed changes in future legislation. And so I'm wondering, what are those policy changes that we would be pursuing?
So this is Jackie Morales-Fran. I'm the Director of Housing. So I can see under home key application number 1, they did not have a specific tenant selection criteria that they added to home key 2. So it appears that they did at one point allow, didn't have this specific requirement to have tenant selection done through the coordinated entry system or aligned with that. And my understanding is that Mountain View, in fact, selected everyone from Mountain View to live in their site. So at one point, this requirement didn't exist. So we think potentially there's an opportunity there. What there would not be an opportunity to change either in Home Key or HAP is this housing first criteria that you talked about a little bit earlier, in terms of conditioning people to participate in programs as a means to keep their housing is not allowed. So you could have somebody enter in a housing program that was part of a work program in one of these sites. But if they dropped out of the work program, we couldn't just say, sorry, you're going to lose your housing. Those are two different issues. But I did want to clarify that.
Right, right. One is qualifying them because they are in an employment or training, and then disqualifying them because they're not, right? Or removing them from the service.
Exactly.
Right. No, I completely get that. I'm still not exactly clear on the policy change, but Jackie, I trust that this. I, like I've said before, I dabble in this. You are absolutely knee deep in these policies and what we need in terms of response and how to change these rules for the betterment of our family. So I'm just gonna leave that piece alone. The last piece that I wanted to talk about was there's mention of folks of certain agencies in this memo. I think one of them was Sandhill, the other one was Comcast, and I would really prefer if we said not limited to. I know that it says partners such as Sandhill Properties, but I think we could either include but not limited to, or just not mention those particular agencies. It appears as exclusivity, and I wouldn't want us to have that people to assume that we have this exclusivity with these folks. I know that they've been doing some really good work, and Mayor heard loud and clear 15 million. I mean, that is a significant amount of money to bring in all the resources together. So thank you so much for your leadership in doing that. And I know that our department leadership also has some very good contacts and has been working with some of these agencies and companies, but I'd like for us to leave out certain names so that we can really explore our options and not limit ourselves to one particular agency that's built into a memo. And so I know I keep saying this is the last thing, but I continue to find things on my notes. So I'll end with just really thanking the group of folks who've come together. Mayor and the rest of my colleagues who've signed on to this memo, I think is really comprehensive, and I want to make sure that our short-term and interim sites lead to permanent solutions for our families. I know that you all agree. I would really caution us to look at how we're choosing the sites that are going to go into any of these 6 districts, including my district, and that it's not in an attempt to quench some of the concerns of our most vocal of residents, but that it really responds to the most vulnerable of the unhoused community, because there is some great distinctions between them, amongst them. I mean, So I want to make sure that that continues to be the way that we make decisions, and that we have steps in between to find permanent housing. And I know that there's a really great family-oriented campaign that will be happening on the county side, which I'm just over the moon about, because it's really much needed. And as you all know, that our families have been just leaving our city of San Jose, going to Central Valleys and other parts that are of California that are more affordable. So I just want to have that as the last thought, and thank you all once again for this proposal.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Cohen.
Yes, thank you. Just I'll be brief, but I want to thank you, first of all, Mayor and the rest of the folks on the memo for this, bringing this forward. It's important to have a comprehensive approach. There's a lot of good detail in this memo. There's going to be a need for all of these different approaches for people with different types of needs. And so it's important to have variety of approaches that you've brought forward here, and a lot of different elements that you have in this. I just wanted to ask about one piece. I know that there's the safe parking piece that Councilmember Jimenez has in his district and in here. I know that there's probably a greater need for that across the city besides what is in this one element. And so I'm just curious as to whether we've, what we think about expanding that beyond this one site as part of this, or whether we think that's a separate effort in the future beyond what's in this particular memo. Because I think we have, and I guess I don't know the scope of what the proposal is in D2. Maybe Councilmember Jimenez, you want to address that a little bit so that I get an idea.
Yeah, very good question. I'm with you that I recognize that no matter how we build it out at the future police training facility, it's not going to be enough. As a matter of fact, right after this meeting, I have a call with Jim Mortball to start getting the ball rolling and start thinking through how to move these things forward. I can tell you that my office, along with the housing department, has been in discussions with VTA on a large, mostly vacant parking lot at the Santa Teresa light rail station to figure out if we can utilize that as a safe parking for RVs. But I also have to be very honest with you, is that District 2, specifically that area, already has a big problem with many RVs parking along our roadways, just like District 4, and I suspect, District 3, for example, we were talking about yesterday. And so, I'm trying to do whatever I can to move that forward, but to be very frank and honest, I mean, I very much prefer to have District 2 RVs that are right around the corner from that site park at that location. And that's why yesterday when we were having the discussion, I expressed that I thought it was important that we all look for sites in our district, right? And so I am looking for an additional site, but I don't know how many that's going to hold, but my hope is that it helps plug the need that we have in District 2 for RV parking.
Right. And that wasn't meaning to imply that you were finding a site that would accommodate the entire city need in your district. I guess my question was more one to suggest that that the memo was addressing one specific site, which would potentially address District 2's needs. But we know that I think every district in the city has RVs scattered throughout in neighborhoods and across the city. And this is an additional need, I think, that we haven't really focused on yet as a city for a comprehensive solution. And so I'm just wondering, if there's been thought about how we might, and that's probably not part of this particular.
But just another thing to add there is Jackie. I'm sure Jackie could speak to this, but I think the RFP is going to be re-released as it relates to RV safe parking. And so I'd be curious to hear from Jackie, as I'm sure you would, as to whether she thinks whoever steps up can handle more than one site, right? And I think that would probably open up the door to other possibilities that just don't exist at the moment.
Yes, hi again. This is Jackie Morales from the Housing Department. And so, yes, we had already had in our work plan to open up a couple of RV parks or safe parking. And RVs require additional work and additional services because of the nature of having to dispose of their waste. We did not have any nonprofits responding that they wanted to actually provide oversight of an RV park. We are, as a result, we did meet with nonprofits to re-engage them to understand what was making them hesitant. We're going to address those concerns in the next RFP that we're going to release, and hope that we will get more than one respondent. In our work plan, we were hoping to open at least 2 RV or car parking, safe parking spots in the city.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a conversation maybe for a separate discussion offline besides what we're doing here, but I appreciate it. I just wanted to just bring that up as an issue that we need to work on maybe separately going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to speak to the issue of prioritizing individuals within a geographic area, specifically when you talk about some of these solutions. As Councilmember Jimenez was saying, he'd love to be able to, if there was a solution created in a particular area, he'd love to be able to utilize that to relocate, for instance, RVs from his own area. And that actually speaks to the concern or the question that Councilmember Arenas had on potentially some policy changes or advocacy. And this is an area that I've been interested in for a number of years, as we've housed a number or created a number of these permanent supportive housing units and other opportunities. And the ones that have come with outside requirements, if you will, because, for instance, Measure A dollars funded through the county, or solutions funded through state dollars or federal dollars, coming with the requirement that we can't exclude someone from outside of the area, whether it's outside of the city of San Jose, somewhere else within the county. And that, at the end of the day, has been one of the last sort of straws that community members that I've engaged with have been frustrated about. For instance, a neighborhood that maybe was reluctant at first to have a permanent supportive housing development in their community, that then came along and understood that that this could be a benefit and helpful, and that they could work with us and the operators to make it successful. But then at the last, I guess, hurdle is they become frustrated when they find out that we can't prioritize, and not even necessarily mandate or guarantee, but just we can't even prioritize getting individuals that may be homeless that are in their immediate community or even their surrounding community, and that we could end up with people from Mountain View or Gilroy or outside of the area. And so that's where I think that advocacy could be beneficial, to see if we can have some changes there to open up a little flexibility. As Jackie was stating, the example was Mountain View, right, with some of these initial dollars, because that stipulation wasn't there on the geographic sort of location of individuals. Mountain View simply just said, great, we're going to house individuals within our community. And I think, that's a lot of what these neighborhoods would love to see is, hey, look, if we're going to take on solutions like this, could we at least know that it's going to be benefiting, or at least prioritize a benefit to the unhoused neighbors that already live in their community. So I look forward to that, hopefully coming forward. That is an interest of mine, been an interest of mine. And I recognize that when we have local dollars, that those parameters are not a requirement. We can do this already. But for other dollars that we're taking advantage of coming from the county, the state, we then need to advocate for maybe some change. That's that advocacy that we'd like to see. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I say, just in response to Councilmember Cohen's excellent point about parking for RV vehicles, I didn't have any brilliant ideas. When Councilmember Jimenez mentioned, well, we're working on this, I said, great, let's throw it in there. But I think, we'd welcome, maybe this is the opportunity for have another discussion about how we can engage in siting in a different way for that particular need as well. I'd welcome that, and obviously we'll be able to entertain council memos whenever this comes to council.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. I don't see any other hands raised. We did have a motion, I think it was Councilmember Davis, but didn't hear a second.
Yeah, I seconded it.
Oh, you second? Okay,
Okay.
great. All right, Tony?
Arenas,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Peralez,
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, on to the next topic, which is cleaner San Jose. And before we go to the public, I'm gonna go to Lee first. Lee, I know that the early consideration document, you want to speak to that, please?
Sure, Vice Mayor, thank you. As outlined in the early consideration form, the administration has greenlit all of the items here. As it is a workload assessment and cost analysis, we'll be bringing this forward as for consideration and council discussion on November 2nd, just like the previous item, and staff is here for any questions the Rules Committee might have.
Great, thank you, Lee. And the mayor is still with us, so I'm also going to make a wild guess that he's going to want to speak to this item as well. And I'm anticipating that he's going to go into a lot of detail. So
No, I'm not. Just going to say
Alright.
thanks for considering the memo, and thanks for everybody who co-signed.
Awesome, outstanding presentation, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go to the public first, and Tessa.
Okay, thank you. Clean San Jose. Yes, I've been hearing about that. And that Mayor Liccardo wants to pay people $25 an hour to clean. And I think that's good. And, the other program that, Sylvia Arenas was talking about is like, do we take away housing if they're not working? So these are the like critical issues that we're looking at, is like, how do you keep people working and being productive in our society? But the thing is that the issue of participating in capitalism and consumerism is what we really need to get away from. So when we're giving people just money, and that's like, as we go forward in terms of our climate crisis, and we're supposed to stay at 1.5 degrees, that means we're reducing our economic growth. We have to reduce our economic growth. So to say that we're going to give people jobs and then they're going to get into housing and they're going to be part of the American dream of this cycle, this is a myth, because all of our money actually is because it's based on fossil fuel production. That's how we become an industrialized civilization. So really, I think the key to all this is that if we are going to stay below 1.5, so we don't have the storms and horrific storms that they're saying is going to be 40 times worse for the next generation. I don't know if it's 40, but it's bad for the next generation. Everything we're doing is going to be affecting that. So we need to stop the production of fossil fuels and even this economic growth. So what it needs to be, I think, is universal basic income, because there will not be jobs. There will be work. We need to get people to work. And it's based on like the Salvation Army's philosophy of, and the Christian philosophy of, idle hands or the devil's workshop. But we need to get people working in solving our problems, which is not only clean, but it's also growing food and producing food and preparing food and preserving food. So we stop waste, stop plastic.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm a big believer in clean. I'd like to, I don't know, maybe people could dream with me. I just wish that 0 point energy stuff was actually real in a little cube, you know what I mean? Something, but it's going to be up to us, because I don't think we're going to get visitors from wherever. And hopefully if we do, they won't be like us in some ways. Anyways, a little far afield, I know that, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. We just need a clean place to live, and I probably won't be here that much longer. I got about another 8 months in the state, and then East Coast is going to have to listen to me talk. But I'm really, really hopeful that San Jose does get this together, because it is a beautiful city deep down. And I thank all of you for that. But thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Blair?
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman here. Thank you for this item and this project. I'd be interested in it myself. You know, for as good as this project can be, I think we have to be just a bit wary about introducing it as, you know, the one all be all fix it plan of things. Working with garbage is kind of dirty work, and there's a lot of issues with collecting garbage that I think day after day, week after week, it can get a bit tiring and I don't know, unhealthy. So, I mean, while it is of help and it seems like good, it can do some good things. We just have to, I guess, know how to talk about it. And so thanks for letting me talk about it here. And I wanted to quickly mention that with the home key ideas, you know how much I've been talking about the subsidy plans coming down from the state and federal level to help with transitional housing. I think those subsidy plans can really help with home key issues. I can't remember her name at the moment, but a person who speaks regularly on homeless issues, she spoke about, you know, the need that to create housing for people living in their district area is an important concept. I hope that can be worked on with this new subsidy funding. And it can really be of help with the transitional process and how possibly to help with turnover issues and get people from home key to permanent housing. I mean, there's real permanent housing ideas that are possible at this time that, you know, from transitional practices that have been stymied for years. Good luck how we can work on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes, I'm for this project completely. My grandfather, a very wise person, said that if a person doesn't have a pair of boots and you give them one, if they don't reach down and pull on the boots, then you're not going to solve the problem. And one of the things I found talking to the people in the Columbus Park area and up and down the river is a lot of them don't have work. Many of them, and I could give you the names, would say they would love to have a project. I'm a little jealous. I retired as a paramedic, only earning $25 an hour. So I guess I should have went to work for Sam. So I think that we need to have some pride in our lives, and having a job is one of those things that can make us proud. Councilman Perales, a lot of the folks there, to your comment, are not only from not San Jose, but are actually from other states. So just a comment, you can do with it what you want. And Mayor, I worked with the Conservation Corps recently on 2 projects, just trying to help out the city and myself and feelings. And I found that at one time, up to 15 of them lived in their car or didn't have housing. I don't know if it's that high. I'm not saying it is now, but I know it's more than 1 or 2. Anyway, I'm all for this project. I'm all for getting more housing, the end.
Thank you. Bringing it back over to the committee.
I would like to move approval.
All right.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I don't see any hands raised. So Tony?
Vice Mayor, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I couldn't get my hand up.
No worries.
I apologize.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to start out by just thanking everybody for this proposal. I know for our district, there's some areas that have been really impacted with accumulation of blight and whatnot around, just like in everywhere else in San Jose. And so I think a targeted strategy like this is great. One of the things that I'm concerned about, though, is it's under recommendation 1C, and that it prioritizes high need neighborhoods with a focus on blighted streets and other public spaces more frequently and visibly encountered by our residents. And we've seen before how more affluent and well-resourced neighborhoods are the ones who are calling in or plugging their complaints into San Jose 311 or formerly the My San Jose app. But perpetually leaves out those folks who are not as savvy or just don't have the time or resources. And so I want to make sure that this is not going to be motivated by the frequency of calls and concerns, but it's going to be determined by the actual need. And I think I can't remember what the system was called, but I know that Zara Sarati and Jim Orpal had been working on a system that qualified, if you will, the level of impact that neighborhoods had. And so I'm wondering if somebody could talk a little bit more about how this will be determined and how can we make sure that this is equitable, especially for those neighborhoods that are not going to produce those kinds of concerns through the systems that we currently have.
Good afternoon. This is Neil Ruffino. I'm the Assistant Director for Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services, and I can take a bit of that question. Councilmember Arenas, the process that you talked about with Jim and Sarah, that was all part of the development of Beautify SJ's effort over this past year with through the EOC. And that effort of us looking at equity as a core is really what we're going to continue to maintain throughout the organization for Beautify services that have been carried forward through the Park and Rec Department. A lot of the work, will be done through ground truthing this effort through our own staff, right? We're going to have a lot of staff and partners in this who see where these hotspots are, right? We're going to be overlaying it with the mapping of need, across the city. And we do utilize a tool such as SJ311 as one parameter, but we definitely know in the work of SJ311, that is not the whole answer in terms of services. So our intent is really to prioritize where our services can be done. As we all know here, the resources are still going to be limited. There's a lot of work to do, and we need to really be focused on making sure that the highest impacted communities are maintaining and are being serviced.
Great, thank you so much, Neil. I'd love to learn a little bit offline in terms of what is overlaid on that on that map, and we can talk offline about that. The other thing that I was concerned about, and I know that you just addressed this portion of my comment by assuring me that there's a variety of sources of information to collect and determine what those high needs are or where those high needs are. But recommendation 2A, this has the potential of a bounty or reward system that could target people of color for illegal dumping and would provide more of the affluent residents, who are typically, like I mentioned, are the ones who report, with another tool to report citizens of color or residents of color, excuse me. So, I want to caution us in this approach. And I'm not sure if this is something that you've already thought through, probably. And I'm asking a question that you probably have an answer to.
I just say, part of this is, part of our system is going to be to take a look at the actual data, right? And we don't have that yet, in terms of a new system where this would be rolled out. And part of our work towards centering equity in all of our decisions is to understand what the data tells us, and if there are situations where, race is a factor on here, we have to continue to look at this and say, okay, well, what is it about it? And what is it that we should be doing around it? So I'd say, I don't think it should hold us back from rolling out a recommendation like this. I think we need to put as many tools as we can to stop illegal dumping and, take a look at what the results are and who is harmed and who is hurt, right, as our basic tenet about working with equity.
Right. Well, with that, logic in mind, then part of my concern would still stand, right? That this would enable some of more affluent residents who are more resourceful to report others who they believe are the problem. Lastly, I just want to, I really appreciate the Trash for Cash or Cash for Trash program. And I know it's mostly focused in the downtown area, and some of my residents that have been working around the Thompson Creek, which has also become a sore site, they advocate quite a bit for our unhoused community there. They, out of their own pocket, feed our community, unhoused community. And so I'm hoping that we could also have some of the source sites be included into the San Jose Bridge program, or have them incorporated. Is there any plans to do that, to have a little bit more focus outside of downtown areas?
I could start, I guess, the answer on that one. And the bridge program overall will be managed by the housing department. And, as we design it, housing in the lead with GRNS and Beautify as partners in there. I mean, we've laid a lot of groundwork with the source sites already, and I really don't think that there would be any reason why we wouldn't utilize source sites as one of the base communities of service. Jackie, if you wanted to add anything on that.
Yeah, we're just beginning to take this particular program over, and so we're certainly open to ideas about how to implement it and what would be most effective, and ensure that the resources get distributed in places where it makes sense.
Perfect. That's my kiddo in the background. All right. Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you, Jackie, for that consideration, and Neil for your responses. I'll be supporting the motion on the floor.
Great. Thank you, Council Member. I don't see any other hands raised. So, Tony?
Arenas?
Yes.
Cohen?
Aye.
Davis?
Yes.
Peralez?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye. All right. So that is the end of that topic. And so we are on to a Transportation and Environment Committee update to the August 2021, June 2022 Transportation and Environment Committee work plan. And
Mayor,
we'll go,
before
yes.
you go to the public, can I just comment that we're just dropping the Climate Smart semi-annual report because we're having the study session on Climate Smart in November. So that's why that is happening. So I just want to make sure before any members of the public comment that we're dropping a very important item, that we are not in fact dropping it. It's going to a study or a special meeting instead.
Got it. Thank you, Council Member. All right. First public speaker is Tessa.
Okay, transportation and the environment. Well, I guess the issue of the bike lane where I fell because there's a big ditch, and the issue was it was on San Salvador, because we moved our farmers market away from the nice part of town where the rich people now can eat their highfalutin meals, restaurant, and the poor people are now having to go to the farmers market down the bad side of town. So that's another issue. But the issue is that there's really, actually the 311 worked pretty good. So that I was really happy, actually, finally, after I called a lot of people to talk about the problem, to have it fixed, and nobody answers the phone. Nobody's answering phones. Now it's like the Google subscriber would like to get your message, and of course they don't want to talk to me, so I don't hear from anybody. But this is terrible, the way our city is being run. is that nobody's home, literally, and nobody's calling back. But this is another issue. But the issue with transportation and the environment is that the 311 worked pretty good to deal with that problem. But in terms of our overall issues in our community, like the way Stockton Avenue is a very poorly designed street, and how we have no left-hand turn signals at both Taylor Street and now on Lenzen, and that we've had a death on Lenzen, and my husband got hit on his bicycle on Taylor and Stockton. So, where does this database, and that's what I've been talking to about the transportation people, is that why, where does this go into, like, I speak to some of the people at DOT, one of the head woman, I forgot her name, but, basically, is there a database where our concerns about our infrastructure go? And I don't hear anything back. And, this forum is not going to come back with it either. But this is what I'm saying, is that we need to have an ability that when we see a problem in our community, transportation wise, and even 311, when I wrote to them about these issues, they kind of said, we're not doing anything like that.
Thank you, Blair.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Sean Cartwright is the person who I was trying to reference in the last item about how we can better place people and to make sure to place them within their district in the future of housing. Thank you to Dev Davis for her words. It is my hope that that is all that this item is about, is to take away just a simple procedural thing. But I thought, it's a work plan that's like a 6-month work plan. And for that to be taken away, I questioned what that is, why that's happening. I mean, it'll be a very nice explanation we'll be hearing November 8th. And so I hope that a future work plan can be available to the public. And I don't quite know the language, how to ask that question, but I hear what Councilperson Davis is saying, and so thank you for that. And hopefully we can work that out, exactly what that is. And that's good practices of a community. That's learning to leave the doublespeak and just talking to ourselves honestly and directly. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The person with the number ending 5140.
The idea about transportation in this city is a disaster. It's not smart. The bike lanes are too wide. The downtown, the way that they did the bike lanes downtown is totally screwed up. People who are in wheelchairs can't get to the bus because of the stupid scooters. Who authorized those scooters? That's the most dangerous thing in the world. The way that they ride those scooters in the bike lanes, it's a disaster. The potholes are everywhere. It takes months to get them fixed sometimes. Sometimes they can be fixed in it's either 24 hours or 24 months, which is interesting how fast or slow it can be. The 311 app is terrible. It doesn't work very well. And a lot of people don't want to have to use it or have to download it have it on their phone. I've called before 311 to get potholes fixed. And anyone who's got a problem with that, call 311. Typically, they've been pretty good. Lately, no. Tess is correct. A lot of people not picking up the phone, especially city council people. Every one of you should be ashamed of yourself. Dev Davis, if you're listening, you're the worst. Your office is the worst in the world. Pam Foley's isn't far behind. No one gets back to you, emails. You guys are just too good. You got a bunch of queens working down there, literally. You got a bunch of royal family members working as a day job, not picking up the phone. And the San Jose Police Department, ultimate worst. Try calling them if there's a problem. If you have a question, they will never. You want to talk about too good? That's them. But getting back to transportation, getting rid of parking, not going to help. If you guys really want your downtown to suck even more, get rid of more parking. Start charging more for the meters. Start having the meter people give a lot of tickets like they did in the 1980s.
Thank you. Roland?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Now, just as a general comment, with regards to previous discussion, I think it would be helpful if sometimes you took public comment after the discussion rather than before. But anyway, here we go. The thing I want to touch on transportation and housing, we have to be careful what we're doing here. We obviously want housing. We are desperate for it. But moving forward, we've got to start being careful that we don't go around destroying our transportation infrastructure in the process. And obviously, what just happened in Gilroy is a pretty good example of what not to do. But now let's start moving at the Vtli light rail and the Santa Teresa station that my council member, Sergio Jimenez, is pushing for. Absolutely. I've been pushing on this for years. But you got to be careful what you're doing. It's a massive site, it's 34 acres, 1,200 parking spaces, but it's split right down the middle by the light rail tracks and the station. And you have to be careful on which side you're going to be doing either housing or RV parking or whatever. Specifically, right now we're using half of the area for COVID testing. That's not the area to be doing RV parking, because that is the area ultimately that the people who have to drive to the station use. On the other side, you have the bus station, and you've got something very important there. You've actually got a bathroom there that these people need. So you have to be careful moving forward how you go about this. And most important of all, please engage the community so that you don't have a repeat of what just happened in Council Member Callan's district. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for public comments. Bring it back to the committee. Can I get a motion, please?
Move approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Tony?
Arenas? Cohen?
Aye.
Davis?
Yes.
Morales?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Last but not least is open forum. And first speaker is Tessa.
Okay, thank you. What, can you hear me? Oh, okay, good, thank you. Well, I appreciate what Roland was saying, you know, that community engagement was very important. And actually, I met a woman that was telling me, and I think I told you all this, in the Alameda, at the city of Alameda, where there's a lot, they have control over what happens in their neighborhood. It's like, wow, that's revolutionary, you know, and that's what we're looking for. And even the issues of what, you know, Deb Davis is saying, you know, that we need to, you know, she's fighting the housing requirements of the state, but so she's talking about local control, yet we don't have that in our own neighborhoods. We don't have that. And that you guys have, you know, when you do your general plan, you do so poor about reaching out to us, because there were 2 general plans that affected my neighborhood. One brought a hotel since I've lived here. So I'm living here. I'm engaged in my neighborhood. I've been fighting Royal Coach Tours, you know, across the street, the pollution, and yet nobody ever contacted me about, you know, that, hey, what do you think about a hotel in this neighborhood? And then they decided the developer owner wanted to put housing. And so he proposed that, and it got shot down because of another city general plan that Deb Davis actually created, because she was fighting to you know, and doesn't even contact the community about it. And what it was is that she created in the general plan change for the new general plan review that she was on, that it was one H, and the H was that it was about housing, and that we keep housing away from businesses because we want to protect businesses in our community, instead of, you know, demanding that they don't pollute and they don't create noise and create a quality of life for the neighbors who have been here first. We're here first. The Alonis were here first. The people, not the businesses. And this whole thing of keeping being business friendly and not people friendly has to change. That's the change. And it's all blah, blah, blah about housing, because you fought housing in your general plan. Deb Davis fought housing. It was all about jobs.
All right, Blair.
Hi, thank you. Good luck to the continued efforts of ELI, VLI, and mixed income. I hope you can really be starting to consider those ideas. A simple reminder, no one at the local level should have to be held responsible to ideas of debt burden in this possible man-made creation of a global pandemic, not tenants or owners. For all the good backup plans the SJ Housing Department offered last night with expanded lawyer and counseling services as state eviction moratorium is ending September 30th, a reminder that most owners and tenants want to try to work in good terms. I feel most owners would try to honor that tenants can still file for eviction moratorium protections after September 30th, and that tenants can continue to pay reduced rents if only what they can afford at this time, and through it to at least March 2022. Please continue to learn how we can more honestly talk about the possible future directions of COVID-19 and its variants, the vaccine process, aerosol vaccines this fall, and how we can continue to respect weekly COVID tests and 48-hour tests before live events. A reminder that with much new AI data collection practices this fall, ALPR practices has brought previous needs of holding on to people's data for a year down to 6 months and down to 3 months. This more efficient system is based on policy practices of more open democracy, civil rights, and civil protections. These are simply ideas of heart, humanity, and positiveness, and what can be more interesting, accessible ideas of innovation. A good luck how city government staff can continue the efforts of open, clear, factual council and committee agenda item topics this fall, and for us to all feel what can be more positive, open, good community democratic practices this fall. These are good reason practices that do not have to involve the use of money. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I still can't get over this whole tobacco blocking the flavored tobaccos and hookahs. You guys get tax money from that, but you have marijuana that's legal. I'm really convinced that you guys want to get rid of tobacco and have everybody smoking marijuana because you get more money from it, right? I mean, what a do-gooder thing to do. You guys, but in the end, you guys need tax revenue to be able to spend money on all these worthless things that are your pet projects. You're not going to have any when people aren't able to smoke cigarettes or flavored tobaccos or hookah. You're not generating any tax revenue. You're losing it. And I recommend anybody who's listening, if you want to buy these things, you're going to have to go online or Indian reservations. And furthermore, for hookah, I think that there should be a foundation of Middle Eastern culture where you can go smoke a hookah pipe and everybody's welcome. And it could be like a 501c3 type thing that's for cultural events or a place of culture. And this way, you guys won't get any money from taxes. Matter of fact, you'll probably have to subsidize it. So I could just imagine a Middle Eastern cultural place where you could play backgammon and smoke hookah, and there could be all kinds of there could be a food bazaar and everything else, and you guys would get no taxes from it. You guys don't deserve one penny the way you waste money and what you think should be bought and sold at a certain time, like Carrasco dictating when you could buy a can of beer on the east side. I mean, you people are a bunch of puritanical weirdos. I swear, I've never ever seen so many people so delusional about how.
All right. So that's the last public comment. This meeting is adjourned. Bye.